Hello, viewers. Your host Neha is back with another interview with a very interesting personality, Mr. Amit Bhatt. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. So I'll just brief our audience about your profile. Mr. Bhatt is an executive director and he's working with WRI India. He has experience of around 20 years into integrated urban transport. He was an architect before. Then he joined his course with SPA for transport planning. So, sir, please tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I completed my bachelor's in architecture in the year 2000,
Right.
and then I started working as an architect, and that's where I realized that probably I need to do something more.
Right.
And I was really interested during this period when I got a chance to work on few other transport-related projects. That I thought I'll do a formal study in transportation. So I went ahead and did a master's in transportation planning.
Okay.
And then I've been working, and after that I also did a bachelor's in diploma in transport economics and management, and then later on a master's in economics. So it's been almost close to 20 years of work. Bulk of it, 18 odd years, has been in the field of transportation, but a couple of years in architecture and interior and those kind of things.
Sure. So, after your graduation in architecture, did you pursue your career in that?
So after doing my architecture, I did work almost for a year, but that's where I thought I need to come into planning, and I got a chance to work on some road widening projects, and that's where the transportation got really interested, and I went ahead in my formal education in transportation.
All right. So after your doing your course with transport planning, and did you get your placement from campus, or you have worked yourself for your first job?
So luckily, I got placement from the course itself, but there was, at that time we didn't have any formal placement as such. So when we had our thesis presentation, we used to get some external faculty members who were working in consulting firm, and that's how I got my first job offer. And so mine was the last. So I was the last batch of one and a half years of master's course. So at that time, we had 18 months of master's course, and after that it became 2 years course. So that's why I started about 6 months early than the usual people who start right now. But since that one campus placement, and then I shifted a couple of jobs, and now with WRI I've been more than 20 years working in WRI.
Okay. All right. So your profile totally comprises of the urban development and the transport planning and transport engineering altogether.
Yeah. So when I did my master's at that time, when you looked at the profile of students who would come to School of Planning and Architecture, bulk of it were engineers. So you either had bachelor's in civil engineering, that was one preferred course, and architects and economists were very few in number. And somehow it was felt that probably the field of traffic and transportation planning is more suited for engineers. But I think that has gradually changed, and we have seen now a lot of architects also coming in.
Yeah.
So either you are an architect, or you're an engineer, or you're an economist, you can pursue the master's in transportation planning field. And SPA was one of the first institutes which offered a transport planning course other than a transport engineering course. And that was the difference. And I think of late I've seen a lot of architects doing masters in transport planning.
All right. So you have decided your career likewise from the starting of when you've started your working, or it you have groomed yourself and it moved accordingly.
No, in fact, I never thought when I did my bachelor's in architecture that I will do something in transportation planning. It's only then when I started doing my bachelor's, and there was a semester when we had to do an elective on town planning. And that's where I really got interested into planning. But I didn't do more than planning. It's only when I came to Delhi and started working that I came to know that School of Planning and Architecture has a course of Masters in Transportation Planning.
All right.
And by incidence or coincidence, you may say, I met a couple of people who had passed out from the transport planning department. And that's where I came to know more about the course, which really got me excited and gradually kind of joined in.
Right.
And later on, I realized that I have to learn a little more than what I did. So that's why I did my master's in economics as well, because there's a very strong linkage to economics and transportation.
Okay.
And that has also helped me over the years.
Right. So, Mr. Bhatt, for the upcoming new talents, what are the key areas they should focus when they begin their career? The choice of stream, because I think transport planning has a vast subject and it has various different streams. So how one should decide on a particular thing?
I think, and during my time, and I'm not sure how it stands right now, but still, I think a lot of study that we do is only to kind of get the subjects clear,
right.
Which is basically to pass ho jate hain, bas, और उसके बाद next semester see. But I think the world has really changed, because right now we are competing. One, there is a lot of technology which is available. So one is we have to keep ourselves abreast with the information, the latest technology, the latest development which is happening.
Yeah.
A lot of good literature is available online. So I think we have to move beyond just passing the exam to assimilating knowledge and learning. Yeah. So that's one. The second important thing is, how do you then apply that learning into a practical application? So that application is something which we have to do. And third, which I think, which I can be very blunt, we don't share our work. Is I've seen a lot of people who do fantastic work, but they don't write about it. They don't speak about it. So how do you share that to a larger audience? That is something which is really missing, and we have to empower our students to start sharing the work which they do, the knowledge that they gather.
Okay. So are there any courses, specific courses into softwares or updating your skills in transport planning or other field, in architecture or civil engineering into infrastructure? Are there any courses a student should do before entering into the corporate world or the consulting world? Or they can start and they can do the courses afterwards also?
Yeah, so one is, there are courses available, and I think, as you know, currently we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of us are locked in. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people are now seeing the value of online courses, which they were not seeing earlier.
Yeah.
But Coursera and others are offering a lot of courses. So one is, there is a lot of online courses which was to apply.
Yeah.
But the second most important thing is that people should find time to understand, to read, to learn more and know more.
Yeah.
And we have seen because the technology is so much available, I have seen a lot of people doing a lot of this very bad copy paste work. So doing original research, reading more about it, learning, and there are several online courses which are not that expensive at all. People think that it's very expensive, but very high quality courses are available, not expensive at all. But people have to find time and do, and trust me, it really adds value to the CV of the person.
Right. And sir, how important for you is somebody's personality or the soft skills in this field, or in any field in that reference?
No, absolutely, this is very important, especially people who are coming into planning, because unlike engineering, in planning you have to communicate your idea, you have to sell your design, you have to convince your client that whatever you have done is right. And one of the most important aspect of this is the soft skills. So how do you communicate, how confident you are, how do you present your work externally? And trust me, a lot of us have realized very late in our career the importance of this, but this is very, very important. I think we should have dedicatedly some focused curriculum around it. How do you split soft skills of people who are into this field?
And do you feel there is a gap in between the industry expectations and the kind of student, kind of colleges we are going through, the courses and the course specific, if we talk about?
Absolutely. And I think because I mean, this is my personal experience. When I completed my master's and I came into the consulting background, I didn't know how to even write a report. So my first assignment was to assist something called a National Road Safety Policy. And I was not even sure what is the difference between a policy, a plan, a feasibility study, and things like that. And how do you go about writing it? So I think one of the way one can really kind of bridge this gap is by doing some practical courses which will teach you the actual application of theory which you have learned in class.
Mm-hmm.
But the other important thing is for universities is also to bring people from diverse stakeholding, people who are into this working environment, and bridge the gap so the student can learn more of what is happening on ground. But otherwise, there's definitely a big gap.
So, do you think there's a collaboration going with the industry and the colleges right now, or it's like far behind the collaboration is?
So there is collaboration going, but so one is at the academic level, institute level. So universities are collaborating with other universities and and then they are doing some joint research project, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
But what is more important is student to student, a student collaboration.
Right.
How can the knowledge, the information flow to the students?
Mm-hmm.
That is happening, but I think much more needs to be done.
Okay. So because you have such a vast experience, a vast career. So did you? I mean, many colleges must be inviting you or other people with the same field to, share their knowledge and all. So these are the things which are going on, as in guest lectures or for the industry people in colleges, or we have to work
I think
on
this is
that.
happening, and I've been to many colleges, kind of where I have been giving guest lectures.
Right.
But one thing I really find which was very strange, and I think I don't know how do we remove this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, and I've seen, and this is what I'm talking about, master's level students.
Yeah.
People don't question.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go for a 2-hour class, it's very difficult for me to make students feel comfortable so that they can ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is to do with the way we have been teaching students. The teacher is always right. Unless the student questions the teacher, he will not improve his knowledge. So I think we have to start in a way allowing students and making them feel comfortable that they can ask questions. Only then the curiosity will start and they will learn. Otherwise, it's all one-way traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher keeps on talking and student keeps on sitting, and we are not really imparting the knowledge that we ought to do.
Yeah. So, sir, you have experience with urban transport. You have worked with the non-motorized transport side, the public transportation. You worked a lot in the road safety side, and you have traveled a lot abroad. So, do you find there's a very there's gap with the Indian road planning and safety part if you compare to the other Western world?
There's a huge gap, and the gap is not only, I'm saying, because we have a gap with the municipal corporation development authorities or public agencies. There's a huge gap even with the kind of products that we are producing from colleges. So, for example, when I came out from School of Planning and Architecture, the mantra for us was count the vehicles on road, assess the capacity of the road. If the vehicle supply is more than capacity, it will go. And then if the supply of the vehicle is more than capacity, then you expand the road. Now, at that time, no one asked this fundamental question that can we also restrict the supply of vehicles? And this is as fundamental as ABC. So I'm saying, so we also have to start teaching and imparting knowledge, which are actually, which don't have this something called a smell and a laughing test. So basically what it means is that we have to also embrace the technological challenges, the provisioning which are coming, saying that the tomorrow's world will be different from what it is today. Maybe 15 years, 20 years back, we had enough roads to supply, but now we cannot expand roads. Right. So how do you then reduce demand? And that is something called how do you create right pricing? How do you do congestion charging? And there are enough examples from around the world congestion charging works. But that is something which is not even taught to me till 18 years back. So I think the technology and the knowledge has to keep pace with what's been happening. And that is a huge area of work that needs to be done.
Yes, right. So you have been also associated with various media houses, and usually you go for the talks and the discussions. So how do you find, I mean, what can be the role of media in the knowledge transfer, and how they should guide the normal public out there to adhere to their responsibility on the roads? So are the media houses doing their work properly?
So yes and no. And the reason I'm saying yes and no is that a lot of reporting in media is not right. Yeah. We tend to blame media for this wrong reporting, and which I also used to do early in my career. And then I realized that people who come and write these stories are not transport planners or traffic engineers.
Yeah.
They are journalists.
Mhm.
And unless you give them the training, they will not appreciate the complexity of the sector. So us, people who are in this field, also need to train journalists, editors, reporters, so that they can write the right stories. And that can only happen is we can build capacities in them. So one way to do is some formal training courses for journalists. So for example, World Health Organization, there's a fantastic course on teaching journalists the details of road traffic crashes,
Yeah.
so that the reporting is better.
Yeah.
The other way to do is that people who are in the field can also write in the mainstream media. And that's what I'm starting to do. I write in some of the leading media also, like Hindustan Times, Scroll, Deccan Herald, so on and so forth. Is that because we also want to communicate a story which is based on facts, which is based on data to the external audience. And the response has been very good to some of the pieces which I have been writing.
That's great. So nowadays we have a minister who's doing really well in this field, Mr. Gadkari. So how do you think things have been changing till the from the time he has taken over in this field, in the infrastructure field?
Absolutely. I think the highway development sector has really picked up pace.
Yeah.
And that is something which he has done. The other thing which he has done, even though he has publicly claimed that his biggest failure has been to not control road traffic deaths.
Yeah.
But last year, because of his efforts, the country passed the Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill, which was a path-breaking legislation to address road safety. Mm-hmm. But I think one is infrastructure creation, and which has been doing very well. I think now we also have to look at that we don't only create infrastructure, but we create safe infrastructure.
Yes.
So that element of safety has to now come in, and that should be the next goal. How we can make roads safe for everyone, not only people in cars, but people who are walking and cycling.
Yeah.
That to me will be the next big challenge in India.
Right. So because few days back there was a video was viral from Hyderabad. They have built up a bridge, and it was not built up properly, or because there was a lot of accident there. So are there any lack of, because there must be some planner, somebody who has worked over that bridge. So how the things get passed out and in the government sector? They have not gone through the plan.
Absolutely. So one, I think there's also a deep lack of understanding. A lot of times when we talk about road traffic crashes, and people use the word accident, I don't use the word accident because accident means something which is unavoidable. Mm-hmm. And the science of road safety says each of the crashes can be prevented. So is that people think that this is our karma, this is fate of God. It is not fate of God. People don't believe that traffic crash has to do with infrastructure design. So when we talk about traffic crashes or accidents, people think drink and driving, wear seat belts, wear helmets, and the problem is solved. No, you have to create infrastructure which is safe. That level of understanding is still not there, and that has to come up. And unless we create cities and roads which are safer by design, unfortunately, we will continue killing a lot of people on road.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's definitely the gap between everything.
Absolutely. And it has to start with the understanding that safety should always come first, no matter what. And if that is the philosophy that we adopt, I think we will definitely improve road safety in India.
Right. So in this case, we can just draw the reference that everybody is not doing their job perfectly. Neither the planner, nor the architecture, nor government, neither the people are on the road. I mean, if I walk on the road and I have to take care of my safety also.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it comes down. A lot of time people think completing the road is priority.
Yeah.
Without realizing it's not priority. Completing a safe road should be priority, not just completing the road. So that level of understanding and maturity, I think it's high time that comes into the India infrastructure planning.
Right. Sir, if you talk about your profile, you have upgraded yourself and you've done courses with the economic side. So how this study of economics have given impact on your career?
I think one of the things that we realize, and that's what we were doing during the calls when we were studying, we never realize. So for example, I'll give you a practical example. A lot of cities in India are now building metros.
Yes.
without understanding that metro comes at a huge cost and you have to pay back that money. Now, constructing it is one, operating it, maintaining it for 20, 30, 40 years is another thing. And unless you have an elementary understanding of economics, you'll not be able to make these choices right. So, for example, yes, some cities will require metro, like Delhi, Mumbai, big cities will require metro. But there are cities like Jaipur, which have metro and which earns more money from film shoots than people who are using the metro.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of understanding is important, and that's the reason why I went ahead and did my master's in economics, to bring the argument of economic viability, economic analysis, financial viability analysis into the conversation, which I think is very, very important.
Right. Yeah. So there's no feasibility studies if the metro is required for that city or not. I mean, somebody would be doing that.
A lot of time, unfortunately, we take a decision and then we do technical studies to justify the decision.
Yeah.
For example, if you look at almost all the feasibility studies will make the project feasible. But the feasibility study does not mean the project should be feasible. It can be also be unfeasible project.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what we see is that consultants give report. The clients don't have understanding even to evaluate the report.
Yeah.
So I think some of these learnings are important for us, so that when a consultant gives a report, you can check, you can verify the claims, and you can provide some comment which will only improve the quality of the project.
Right. So after so many years of work, do you remember any incident or any turning point in your life that have changed your way you think, your thought process, and your career?
Yeah, I mean, initially when I started, I always thought that building more roads will solve the traffic problem. And in fact, I was also culprit to building many of the flyovers, planning and design of flyovers. And after a few years, I realized that building roads to solve congestion is like expanding your waist side to fight obesity. So what you need is a diet control, which means you have to restrict the motor vehicles in the city. I'm not saying that the city should be completely motor vehicle free. Yes, there is an importance of motor vehicle, but we have to decide how much motor vehicles we want in our city, because there is just not enough road to accommodate if everyone moves by car.
Yes. With the current scenario, the things are going on. Roads are all not filled with the car. So is it really the roads, the cars contribute to the pollution level, or there are other things also in this environment? I mean, if we talk about Delhi.
No, there are a lot of things. So there are factory, there are power plant, but motor vehicles have a huge role to play.
Okay.
And I'm saying that why they have a huge one is there's a sheer number of vehicles which are there in the city. So that is one. But unlike, let us say, power plant or industry, motor vehicle emit their emissions where people are. So the health impact of this emission is far, far high. Now, studies show that particulate matter, which contributes hugely to Delhi's toxic air, motor vehicles are responsible for almost 40 to 45% of that emission.
Yeah.
And currently, when we are in lockdown, you see a very improved air quality.
Yeah.
A lot has to do with the restriction of motor vehicles. And I'm saying not everything is because of motor vehicles, but motor vehicles have a substantive role to play in the Delhi's toxic air.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think the Chief Minister's plan of odd and even have worked really well for these to reducing the pollution levels of motors?
So it's very difficult to say, because the odd even was a temporary measure. Yeah. Unlike other countries like Mexico, Bogota, Beijing, which has a regular feature of this kind of restriction, Delhi experimented it for a brief period.
Yeah.
In that period, there were reduction, even though reduction was marginal, because a huge category of vehicles were exempted. Yeah. So two-wheelers were exempted, then trucks and goods were exempted, buses were exempted, only cars. So that's the reason why the impact was not much. But it did make a point saying that when odd even scheme was introduced, the travel speeds improved considerably. So for example, if you were breathing X amount of pollutants during your travel, during odd event, that exposure went down to almost X by 2 because you were not traveling faster. So there were some health benefits as well because of odd event. But again, it was a very limited experience to draw any conclusion.
Yeah. So, sir, if you talk about the road safety thing, there are a lot of accidents which happens on road. So if you think that roads have been planned better or footpaths have been planned better, the bus stop have been planned better, these accidents can be reduced to far extent.
Absolutely. And I think one is that we have to realize whom are we planning the roads for.
Yeah.
So there is a highway which takes you away from the city to another city, to other state, to district. That's one level of planning. The other is an urban street where you move to work, to education, to shopping. That requires a different kind of planning. Unfortunately, the urban roads that we are planning like highways.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we are killing so many people. So I think we have to start designing our streets like an urban street, where there is space for people to walk, there is space for people to cycle, and there is space for a vehicle to move on a safe speed limit.
Right.
Unless we do that, I think unfortunately we'll be killing many more people in our cities.
Right. So if we talk about our new students, what can you guide, what can you advise so that they can take all these points in their mind and they can work accordingly and develop their skill set like that? What one should do to develop their skill set and understand what actually we require in terms of infrastructure?
So people who are maybe, let's say, do bachelors in civil engineering, architecture, and economics, for them my advice will be transport is a fantastic field to work. There's a huge career opportunity in transport because we will need transport as we move forward, because transport provides access to opportunities. So there's a big career to be made. Secondly, if you want to come into the field of transportation, either you can do masters in engineering or you can do masters in planning, and both have fantastic opportunities. But one thing you have to remember, if you are coming into planning field and if you are an engineering student, please start thinking more than engineering. Move away from what you are doing or what needs to be done. Start why it needs to be done, how it needs to be done.
Right.
The actual doing will be more engineering, but the planning requires a lot of questioning of why, what, how. And so start questioning, and then you will find yourself very comfortable in the planning field of transportation.
Right. So, Mr. Bhatt, we just wanted to know about what are your accomplishments, what were your struggles and hardship in this all long 20 years? What is the main accomplishment you find about yourself?
So I think one is that I have really enjoyed the last 18 years that I've been in the transportation field. Got to work some most exciting projects. A lot of work that I was involved in is actually implemented on ground. So when you go there, you see how you designed or how wrong you designed, whatever. So you see, and it's a huge sense of satisfaction that you get. Then, since I also teach in multiple schools and colleges, I see some of my students doing phenomenally well. So that also gives a lot of pleasure.
Right.
But I think the most important thing that I get from this is that you're contributing something. So when you work on improving one road or safety of one intersection or safety of one transport modes, you realize you have saved some lives.
Right.
And there is no satisfaction like saving lives of a fellow human being.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's fantastic. I mean, your contribution is great in our society, and actually we can see all the transport planning's contribution. And this is a huge accomplishment for somebody who has worked over that. So you have worked in corporate a lot. And do you think what are the practices we follow in corporate, either to get good clients, good project, good team, getting promotion? Are there any compromises there? Is there any substitute to hard work?
No, I mean, so one, I think, if I would guess some, so if I would say that what are the three learnings which I have had in my last 20 years of my career. The first is there is absolutely no substitute to hard work. Full stop. And if you try, the reward will be short-lived,
right,
and it will be gone before you. So one is no substitute to hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Second, trust and believe in yourself. Because unless you believe in yourself, you'll not be able to convince the other. So whatever you are doing, do it only when you believe in yourself. And once you believe, then no one should be able to sway that belief. That I'm saying number 2. And number 3, always keep on innovating.
Yeah.
Because and then just 5-6 years back, I thought I could never write a story in a newspaper because I thought I'd never have the capacity. And it was only 5 years back. This was my thinking. And now I am writing almost 1 article a week on cities and transport.
Yeah.
So similarly, I thought probably I could not speak in a public forum. And now I've spoken to gathering which have thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I'm saying innovation is important. And unless you have hard work and belief, and these are prerequisites, and once you bring innovation into it, once you start redefining yourself,
yeah,
I think you will see much more impact from ground.
Yeah, you have to expand your capabilities, your horizons.
Absolutely.
Every time you have to experiment with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, do you have any inspiration in your life? Somebody you look up to for your career in your life?
A lot of people I really got inspired. I mean, my wife does fantastic work. I a lot of inspiration from my parents, a lot of family members. In fact, you can see around, you will see inspiration in everything. But I think what comes down to the end story is that how do you translate that inspiration into action? And I've seen a lot of people who I got inspired, and from tomorrow I'll start working hard.
Yeah.
And when tomorrow comes, tomorrow never comes. So the question is, how do you translate that inspiration, that vision, that zeal, that them into action? Yeah. That's where I think is the important point. Right. And once you overcome some of these initial barriers, I think a lot will be. And then just to give an example, right? So till about 4 years back, and this is nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
Just another example saying that I could never run for more than 200, 300 meters at a stretch. Mm-hmm. And I tried for last 15, 20 years running. Yeah. But till about 4 years back, I could not run even 500 meters at a stretch. And just one day it clicked and I started running. And now I have run more than 24 half marathons, 5, 6 full marathons. I ran in Ladakh, Leh. I did an Ironman in Goa. So I'm saying, so unless you translate that inspiration into action,
yes,
that inspiration will not do much good.
All right. And at the end, Mr. Bhatt, what are your hobbies apart from your work? So is it necessary for one to pursue any hobby to live a healthy and good life?
Since I've been working in transportation, my hobbies are also linked to transport. Okay. So I love running I love cycling. Yeah. Me and my wife, we did cycling from Manali to Leh 5-6 years back. Yeah. I love swimming. So a lot of my hobbies revolve around transportation. I don't like driving car. That is one my other hobby. But yeah, running, swimming, cycling, and spending time with family is something which I really like.
So how do you maintain your work-life balance?
So I think I don't balance Haji. I think the question is, how do you remove the work-life friction? So a lot of times I've seen people when they come home, they want to get rid of what was their work life, and now they want to come into the home life or life. But to me, I think it's always been the transition from work to life is so smooth that a lot of times I am working at home without even realizing that it's actually my office. And so to me, the philosophy has been, how do you remove the work-life friction? And once you remove that friction, Monday morning, you don't get annoyed that I have to start my work. On Friday evenings, you don't get excited that, God, weekend will start. Because what I do is what I truly love.
Right.
And so that's the way. So to me, how do you remove the friction between work and life is important. Once you're able to do it, everything else is balanced.
Right. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Bhatt. It was a very knowledgeable session with you. And thank you for inspiring us, giving us your life experiences for our viewers. Thank you so much. And
No, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir. So, so this is our guest today, and we will come back with many of other important personalities with the industry who can inspire you in your life. So you can subscribe to our channel for Gurukul of Civil Engineers, and our website is www.dcelab.com. So we'll come back with a new person, new personality for the interview. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, and all the best to everyone.
Thank you, sir.